stir it up and do things our way. So if you wanna move, get out of our way.
Stuff to be like insecure about.
It's all the stuff
That you
that we
find random things
Yep, it's all the stuff that we see about ourselves that nobody else sees. It's
that
100
literally no one else sees.
Yeah. And all I see is forehead. I see forehead. That's it. As we're recording, and I don't give a shit. So we just go right into it.
That's where we'll start.
It's a rolling start. That's what we're doing here.
Yes.
That's what PCP Astrology with Bravo Bitch Fest has a different feel from regular PCP
100%.
episodes. So
100%. We gotta differentiate.
exactly, because it's just us astrology girlies talking Bravo.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
No boys allowed. You know, we love Jordan and Nate, but this is a girls only club.
Girls
Granted,
club.
You don't have to be a girly to listen to these
Sure.
episodes at all.
Sure.
You can identify however you want. This is everybody's welcome. And in fact, the boys are welcome on these episodes too. They just don't care. So
it just so happens that every time I talk astrology to a man, he hates it.
Exactly.
Just
Even
works
out
out that
here
way.
in Los Angeles. So,
I hate that for you. Well, I'm glad that we can talk about it. We
I'm
don't
glad
need anyone.
we found each other on the interwebs.
Against all odds, here we are.
Oh my God, Phil Collins. Hello. Anyway, who are we talking about today? We are doing one of my Sagittarius sisters and one of the queens of Salt Lake City,
Yes.
Lisa Barlow.
The queen, I would argue. I know some people are going to say Heather, but no.
I mean, I think it just depends on what side of the fence you go on. Like which kind of, and dare I say it, which kind of bitch you like. Do you like the
It's just my brand. No offense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do you like the in your face bitch like
Mhm.
Lisa Barlow who just basically
Mhm.
doesn't hide it, or do you like the like more calculated behind your back bitch like Heather Gay?
You said it.
I did. I said it. I said the quiet part out loud.
Listen, and Lisa was not one of my favorites in season 1. I mean,
No.
she's not. I think I just didn't get her. She took a little bit of time to grow on me. But that's the thing too that I want to explain. And I didn't look at her chart at all before this, so it's all going to be new to me. But I know that she's a Sagittarius sun.
Mhm.
And I've told you, Sagittarius are the ones that I just can't pin down. So maybe that's why it took me a little while to come around to her energy, because it's kind of not confusing, but it takes a minute to adjust to her. And now I'm like, okay, I get it. I know. I understand now.
Sagittarius, we are people think they know us, but they don't.
You can never know me.
You can't ever know a Sagittarius. We're mutable fire. And what does that mean? We're a fire sign, so we're fiery,
Right.
but we can very much, we're changeable. So you have a cardinal fire, which is Aries,
Okay.
which I liken to a match being struck. Like that's the beginning. Like an Aries will start something. Like Aries is also, I always just think of that 90s British techno song Firestarter. I'm the Firestarter. Like that's
a very
Aries
deep
to
cut,
me.
Stacey.
Well, I was a teenager in the early 20s in the 90s, so like that's my music, like that. And like I was anyway, I just finished watching Vogue in the 90s on Hulu, and hello, I was like, hi my life, like I loved it.
That's fantastic.
So good. If you're Generation X and you loved fashion at all, please, or just Generation X, you'll just love it. Anyway, or an elder millennial, you'll love it. So, and then you have Leo, which is a solid or a fixed fire. And I would call they're represented by the sun. And I would say that's very true. Like the sun kind of like doesn't change very easily. The sun is there. The sun is burning. It's burning hot. It doesn't have any phases. It's never going to go retrograde on you. Like, sure, you get some solar flares and stuff like that, but it is pretty much the way it is. And then a mutable fire is Sagittarius. And I'm going to say that's like a wildfire. Like it starts small, it can go small, it can go big, and can go everywhere. Like it's just a fire on the rampage. And it's something that you can't necessarily control very easily, and that's what Sagittarius is. But it's like, oh, I can, oh, almost like a certain politician. Oh, we think we can control this person, but we really can't, even though that person doesn't really anyway. Yeah, like you think you can control a Sagittarius, but you really can't.
Right.
Especially if they have a lot of heavy Sagittarius within them. So anyway, that's just an easy way. And when we talk about other deeper signs, I think we can, I have other metaphors for them, but I think that's a good way to like, especially talk about Lisa Barlow, because that rampant fire of hers just.
Yes. You cannot stop her even if you want to.
You can't. Well, let's show the chart, because I think it'll explain even more, because not only is she a Sagittarius sun, but she has lots of she has a large stellium in Sagittarius, which means that she's even more weighted into Sagittarius. So let us do this. Let's get it. Hold on. There we go. And yep. All right. Can you see it?
Yes.
Awesome.
And you got her birth time, is that right?
Yes, I did get her birth time. Now it is on the interwebs, but it was given an A rating. So it says 5 p.m. That's what I'm going to go off of, because I couldn't find anybody who was like saying like, oh, that's really shitty. So it was either 5 p.m. or nothing. Because there's some places that you'll go, like you'll get a birth time, but it'll be a very bad rating. Basically, it's called a Rodden rating. So this one keeps coming up, so I'm gonna go with it. But if Lisa Barlow wants to reach out and wants to correct us in any way, she would, and I am more than happy, my Sagittarius sister, for you to correct me on this, even though I do not like being wrong either, just like you, honey. But to get a correct astrological chart, all about it.
Right. 100%. For the sake of science.
For the sake of the astrological sciences, yes, I am here for it.
Yes.
All right. So given the birth time that I found, she is a Cancer rising over here. So at 0 degrees. So you know something about being a Cancer rising.
Yes. And you know what that tracks, because she cries when she's like, I don't want to cry, and she starts talking about her kids or something, and it's just immediate. I was like, yeah, there's Cancer in there somewhere.
Definitely, for sure. So like, just like with you and your Cancer rising, even though she's a Sagittarius and she has this huge amount of like weight in Sagittarius,
right,
she still will overly identify with the moon. Like that is, no matter what your sun sign is, like the chart ruler for her is the moon, because the moon rules Cancer. So that's what's going to rule her. So she is very much, even if she doesn't want to, which we'll get to in a second, she is ruled by her emotions a lot more than she wants to admit that she is. But she also, as with all of us, to be honest with you, all of us are ruled by our emotions and our hormones, no matter whether you are, no matter whether you were born XY or XX. Our hormones literally run almost everything in our body, as science is finding out. So we are hormonal beings, and we are run by hormones, and we're run by emotions. So
you know what? That's okay. Okay. Justice for all the people who let their emotions guide them, not rule them, because that's something that I'm learning in my practice. And Cancer rising, because this is one of the ones that I had to look at in my own chart that I knew. I don't want to say I didn't know anything about Cancer, but it was my like least favorite placement. And it made sense, because things fluctuating was very difficult for me, right? And the moon is always changing. Like you said, there's phases and emotions. And it's like, once you can learn to just kind of like ride the wave and go with the flow, life gets much easier. But also when you release the shame of being an emotional being, so many people are quick to say, especially with women, to be like, you're so emotional. Yeah. So what? All
exactly. So what? I'm emotional. Like, I did a TikTok over somebody saying that somebody wasn't using logic. And I was like, excuse me, your argument is actually fundamentally emotional. What you were saying is not based on logic whatsoever. And I was like, let me point out the ways that what you're saying is not logical at all and based purely on emotion. But you are masking it by trying to not show your emotions. So
The irony.
yeah, this is the thing. There's always a time there's a time and a place to it's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about like knowing when to like throw them out there and use them constructively, or knowing like when you shouldn't suppress them, or when there are times when it's like, you know what, this is just a passing phase and it's not really useful to like moving forward in the moment.
Right.
And I
That's
think
a good way to put it.
yeah, and I think that's something that comes with like age, you know what I mean? Like, and it's actually just like with like this hurricane that just because we're recording this on Friday, September 27th. So this is coming out a little bit later, but like literally like Hurricane Helene just blew through the Florida panhandle the night before and is traveling up through like Georgia and like North Carolina and Tennessee and everything like that. And it's like, that's like, you know, when you bottle up all this emotion and you all of a sudden let it out, it just can destroy things, but it does it very quickly. And you're like, what happened? As opposed to like, if we're having like these gentle rains, every so like just quietly letting it out, you know, people know how you feel over time is a lot less destructive. So like you were talking about, like going with the phases of the moon and going with the phases of how you're feeling, and like trying to not to let this shame like put a dome on top of it.
Like, that's the perfect metaphor.
There we go. I'm so metaphorical here.
I love a metaphor. And also I had, not to get off of astrology too much because it's interwoven, but human design is something that's like a super system with astrology. And there's something, it was talking about your basically how you make decisions. And mine was emotions. So I had a guy that I was talking to that he wasn't necessarily shaming me about emotions, but kind of implied that I let my emotions be a guide too much for me. And I was like, okay, well, when I looked into it, it's like, that is what I'm supposed to work with. Like, I'm supposed to kind of ride the wave of my emotions. And then once it's done, once I have felt everything, then I am able to make a decision from that point. But it's a necessary part of the process for me to go through and feel it. You know, it's just, you do kind of have to learn to control it. But then I think also people have to be able to hold space for that. And maybe that's kind of where Lisa messes up. And I would even argue Whitney, because that's a big thing for her, right? It's her feelings. So she's like, these are my feelings. Like, yes, of course, you're entitled to your feelings, but you don't want to spew onto people. Like you said, the hurricane, you don't want to spew all of your emotions out, but you have to have people who are going to let you feel and kind of go through that. Because then, like you said, once it's over, it's like she's calmed down. And then it's like, okay, now she can see things with a little more logic. It's
and also,
just if stubbornness will let her admit that she's wrong.
Exactly. And also, like the storm, like feelings can be temporary. In fact, most of them are temporary. And just like the storm, like, oh, well, that's great. You just blew your feelings all over everywhere and you caused all this damage to people, but you're done with it and you're over. Yet there's a wake behind you, as opposed to like, you know, and that's when you blow up these emotions. It's not to say that like people can't have blow ups. That's not what we're saying at all. It's just the learning how to navigate. Because look, human beings are imperfect no matter what. And it's just like, and we're all here basically put on this earth just to learn, to experience and to learn, to be honest with you. But I think we all know that it's like, I always said that, and it makes sense since I'm a Libra moon. I just know this. I've said it since I was a teenager. I was like, I feel like we're all just here to find two things in life: balance and love. Like, we want balance. We want to find like
such a Libra thing.
Yeah, but I was like, we want to find like a work-life balance. We want to find like balance like with our weight. We don't want to be too skinny or too thin. We don't
Mhm.
want to be like too rich or too poor. We don't want to be like we don't want to work too much or have like too much family time. We want to always find a balance of things. And when it comes to love, it's not necessarily romantic love. It's the love of our family. It's the love of our friends. It's
Right.
it's love and like love for ourselves. Like we don't want to love ourselves too much, but we don't want to be like poor in the love for ourselves. You know what I mean? You don't want to love
Yeah.
your children too much at the detriment of your spouse, but you don't want to love your spouse too much at the detriment of your children. It's like we just want to find all like and you want to feel like appreciated at work. Like
Mhm.
that's a form of love. Like love is currency as well. So it's all about finding these balances of things. Like how can you be in tune with your emotions? How can you allow them yourself to express them? And when you go a little overboard, how can you learn from those moments
Right.
of that, not to show somebody how they should treat you, but how you should see how like how can I treat myself better so that I'm
That's
not
it.
pushing it out onto people. And I think that's like
Yes.
for Whitney something that she needs to learn of like her feelings are her feelings, but her feelings are not facts.
Right.
And
And also, your feelings are not anybody else's responsibility. I know we're talking about Lisa Barlow, but the Whitney thing is really driving me crazy because she's doing that thing where it's like therapy speak, like
Mhm.
just because you're going to therapy and you're healing and you've had trauma, babe, everyone's got trauma. You know what I mean? The world is not going to tiptoe around you, a full grown adult, by the way, while you heal on this healing journey that she's having, like, and she does, she says it like her feelings take precedent over everything else. Like your feelings are not anyone else's
Mhm.
responsibility. My 9-year-old knows this because I tell
Mhm.
him, like, yes, of course your feelings are valid, of course, but guess what? They are not anyone else's responsibility any more than other people's emotions are your responsibility. And it's
Mhm.
truly liberating when you can just, like, I'm not responsible for how anyone feels or how they perceive me. And I think Lisa Barlow has a good take on that because she does kind of like what you're saying of like loving yourself. I think she loves herself so much.
She
And
does.
I think people don't know how to handle that necessarily. But I think, I don't know, for me personally, and I'm just basing this on like what we've been watching lately. So I'm sure if I looked back on former episodes, I might be like, oh, wait, maybe I'd take that back. But I think for the most part, she doesn't, it's not like too much. I think her level of love for herself is perfectly healthy. I don't think that she's going too far with it.
I think she goes back. Well, let's get into it because we'll talk
Okay,
about
let's do
Whitney.
it.
We'll talk about Whitney Rose another
Oh, she's
time.
gotta go on the list.
She's
I'm
got a
beefing with
lot.
her, so she's driving me crazy. So much so that like Heather, I'm on Heather's side in these arguments. Like, don't make me
Well,
do that.
I feel like she's taken Heather's place in the weaponization of her past in how to let. And I do think that a lot of us as humans go through a period of time like that
Mhm.
in our lives where we all of a sudden realize something bad that happened to us, and as we try to you know like reckon with it in
Yeah.
our different ways, we start to like, well, I'm healed and I've had this realization, so you should have these realizations, whether it's
Yes.
abuse in the past, whether it's from our own addictions or something like a person who's just going through recovery. A lot of times they'll be like,
Yes.
you should do this and you should do this. And it's like, yo, these things, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
your
like
journey.
yeah, but I think that's what like Whitney's going through. And there's a point where you have
100%.
to just like go like, yo, this is yours. This is not
And I think
everybody.
they did that last week. I can't remember who it was. It was kind of like, that's your thing. I had a friend that called it Bird Box. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie where they're like holding their eyes open and they're like, look at it. It's like that energy of like, look, you have healing. And Heather projects it. I mean, Whitney projects it onto Heather. And it's like,
Hmm. Hmm.
relax. I get it. And Sarah from Dubai does the same thing too. Of like, y'all gotta just, not everyone wants to heal. You know
No,
what I mean? Relax.
it's
That may not be their lot in this life.
it's also a form of codependency too, trying to get everybody else to heal. And like if you want to look at like Whitney and like everything with her dad, like that's a form of codependency there. Like so like that's something else she has to work out and decide. So, but we'll look at her chart later. We'll
Groundbreaking. Yeah, no. Okay.
add that to the
Focus on
list.
the task at hand.
Because I would say that Lisa Barlow is not codependent whatsoever.
Whatever the exact opposite of that is. Hyper
I mean, okay,
independent.
yes. Okay, let's start first with her let's stay with her ascendant. Let's stay with her first
Okay.
house here. So we have Saturn in her first house. So this
Okay.
is where I go, no wonder she can come off as like hard and stern.
Mhm.
And it can be hard for people to see that softer, more emotional side. And I think she does try to hide that, or at least she did when she was younger. Like I've said
Yeah.
before, we grow through our chart, like, and things change and sometimes things
Mhm.
that worse. So I think like there's a dichotomy that I see with Lisa Barlow of like this hard, stern businesswoman, and I talk fast and I talk at you. Like I see this very New Yorker, and she is a she is a New Yorker and everything like that. Yet she is very emotional, and she is very like lovey-dovey, which we'll get more into. So I feel like a lot of that is this Saturn in the first house. Here's my armor. Let me protect myself. Truly like a Cancer, though, in a way of like, if you think about the crab, like
The
where's
crab, yeah.
the suit of armor to like hide its soft inside. So she wears that. That's why she comes off hard, stern, but that's why she's kind of like, I mean, do we use this term anymore? Like a boss babe or whatever?
Right. I mean, I think it's part of her charm. But again, I'm a Cancer rising, so I'm like, I see myself in this, and the Capricorn placements too. These make sense.
I mean, yeah, like, so I don't know what the deal is lately. Like I've been dealing with so many cat moons. Like,
Yeah. This is like the third one we've done with Capricorn moon.
yep.
Wild.
Everybody with these Capricorn moons. So again, Capricorn moon, Capricorn is in its detriment here. It does not like being here. It is because it is directly opposite Cancer, its home sign. So it is the furthest point away. It does not enjoy being here. So it's very hard for it to just like for it to act right, basically. So this is why I do think in some ways there's like, it's almost like talking about like you know what an air gapped computer is?
Mm-mm.
It's a computer that has never been connected to the internet. So like a lot of security systems or people like with high functioning security, whatever, they will have a computer that is basically has its like Wi-Fi card and Ethernet cards ripped out of it. So it can never be like attached to the internet so that nobody can hack it that way. So the only way it can be hacked is literally physically hacked.
Right.
So I would say in like a lot of ways, that's where I feel like she's kind of like an air gapped computer because she has her moon conjunct Venus here in her 7th house of relationships. So like family is really important because, and I'm putting family here, even though this is the house of like relationships, but like, because Libra is her 4th house of family. Libra is ruled by Venus. And also Taurus is ruled by Venus as well. And this is the house of like friendships, career gains, social networks, pennies from heaven, things like that. So like, this is where like she sees everybody as family. Like if you get into her circle, you are in her circle and you are there.
Right.
So like when she talks about like, I don't let people in very easily, but when you're in, like, if you hurt me, you really hurt me. Like she's being true because like she speaks her truth. Like Sagittarius tend to be very blunt. Like we tend not to sugarcoat shit, which is sometimes to our detriment. But a lot of times I think is like, it's not always the fact of like, I'm not a bitch. I'm just being honest. It's like, no, I might be being a bitch, but I'm honest.
Right.
Too.
Right.
And if I am being a bitch,
what it is.
Yeah, you can call me a bitch and that's okay. Like I'll work on being a bitch, but I'm not going to work on not being honest with you. Like a lot of times with Sagittarius, it's like, I'm not trying to be a bitch. If I am a bitch, tell me I'm being a bitch because I don't want to be mean, but I just want to tell you like what's up because I don't want to lie to you. That's the main thing with. So she doesn't want to lie to people, but like, so this moon in Venus in the 7th house in Capricorn is like very much of like, but when I tell people I love them, they may not think it, they may not feel it because of the way that I say it. But in my heart, and for me, I feel it. This is I'm very possessive. Like I think about her like kind of like smothering her children, like Jack, like how much,
Yep.
but that's the way that she shows love. Like she really does
Mm-hmm.
feel things very, very deeply. It's just she has a hard time. It comes off as, I think, and this is what I felt about her like the first season. I was like, is she real or is this fake? And I think it can
Right.
come off as just disingenuous, but it really is
Right.
really her. Because it also, the moon conjunct Venus can come off as like she can be materialistic. Like
Right.
she
Well,
enjoys
and
things.
with her relationship with John, it I can't put my finger on that one either. So maybe it comes across, I don't know, maybe that's because it's Venus. Tell me what you think, because I can't get a firm read on her relationship with him anyway. It's very clear to me that like they love each other. But I know there's a lot of speculation, I think, on how much he would be willing to put up with. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's like, is it bothering him to kind of, I mean, you've seen the conversations where they have where she's talking and just like a yapper and he'll say something back, but it seems like she's not really paying attention to it. And I
She's
think
not.
that, like you're saying, is one of the things that comes across as like she's like self-absorbed,
Mhm.
but it still feels like she loves him. So
Mhm.
is that just being misrepresented?
I don't think it's necessarily being misrepresented. I think that's like what their relationship is. I mean,
Right.
because the seventh house is the house of the other,
Mm-hmm.
like of what she is looking for though too in a romantic partner slash
Mm-hmm.
business partner, because these are also business partners. She is a business
Right.
partner with her husband too.
Right.
And and for any water rising sign, so for any
Mhm.
Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio rising sign, the
Mhm.
other that we are looking for is an earth sign, because it's going to
Okay.
be Capricorn, it's going to be Virgo, or it's going to be Taurus. So we're looking
Right.
for somebody like with a little bit more stability. So she's looking for
Mm-hmm.
somebody with a little bit more stability and a Saturnian type of nature, which
Kind
is
of
ironic.
serious.
Yeah, because she is, while she is emotional and watery, she is also very Saturnian as well, and she kind of needs that power. So it's kind of like, if it works for them, I feel like it, without like having his chart or anything,
Right.
it's, and also we don't know inside of people's relationships as much as I like to
Right.
know inside of people's
I
relationships.
know. Love to project.
So I think it can work. Like, but
Mhm.
this, like, okay, so but like you said, like she doesn't really listen to people. Well, that's like this, I would say another overarching theme with Lisa's life is this Sun conjunct Mercury. I mean, hello. This is
Right.
this is like huge here. Hold on, I just have to see this. Okay. So she was born with Sun conjunct Mercury. It was almost Cazimi. It was almost in the heart of the sun, but it's kind of getting burned up by it. Um, and so this does make her like whip smart, and especially whip smart mouth. Like, I mean, we see her, she talks a mile a
Mhm.
minute. You can barely get anything in her, very forceful when talking. But it also brings up a bunch of like self-centered thinking, and also doesn't really listen. Like that's the dark side of it. Like
Right.
the light side is like very smart, very quick thinking, like very fast with your talking, also like very skilled at like bing, 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 bing. But
Right.
also, I'm only talking and thinking about me and my stuff.
Mhm.
And and it's with her own son. And but it's also in her sixth house. And this is the house
Mhm.
of work and of her body and of like uh pets and rentals and stuff like that. But I feel like this is why, okay, so everything's like, she's got the sun, Mercury, Neptune, the North Node, and Mars, all in her sixth house of work. She identifies with work. Like this
Mhm.
woman, she's never gonna retire. She's never gonna retire. No, no, she's always gonna be working. She's always gonna be doing something, especially like even like with this North Node here, like going straight for like this is her raison d'etre. Like this is the energy of her life has always been pointing towards work, towards being busy,
Right.
towards doing something. Her past lives with the South Node were about
Mhm.
like releasing stuff, dealing with past, dealing with more like esoteric type of things. Like this
Mhm.
this life is about moving forward in
Right.
her life because she's released something in a past life, I would say. Just let something
Interesting.
go. Yeah. And she's got literally she has planet Neptune conjunct the North Node. Like they're right almost to the minute conjunct. And so this is like she's way more creative than her Saturnian first house would like Saturn in the first house would like let you know that she is
Right.
because and then but this kind of goes along with the moon and Venus conjunct each other. Like she she has more of a deeper creativity within her. Like and she
Mm.
is this will help make her this much Neptune conjunct the North Node. This lifetime is also about making her dreams a reality.
Well, that tracks.
Yeah, she's going to do everything she can to make her dreams a reality. And I think like to be honest, if I was just looking at her chart and I didn't know who she was or what she did,
Mhm.
I would think that she was a woman who ran a beauty brand, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
Right. But then I think about so I'm like a little surprised that she runs a liquor and spirits brand. But then I go, well, you know, liquor and spirits have an effect on your body. And
Right.
this is a house that can like can actually hurt your body and liquor
Right.
hurts your body. But also
Right.
think about the Vita tequila bottles. Like they're really beautiful bottles. Like and
Yeah.
she has a hand in like crafting them and like she has a hand in like everything about all of that stuff.
Right.
And she's also
Well,
like she's
and
not
what's it? Is Fresh Wolf? Is that the name of it? Those are kind of beauty supplies, right?
that's right. It is it's like a
Yeah.
men's beauty like brand,
Yeah.
hair care brand. Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot
So
about
you
that.
were yeah, so you were on brand. You were right on track
There was.
without even remembering.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. So
Fresh
yeah,
love.
so like I would say even more so like I mean, she would be one unlike other housewives who have tried to have beauty brands. She would be
Mhm.
one who would probably have a successful beauty brand too.
Actually do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also because she has Mars here too with it. Like this is like it's moving forward. It's like this she's just driven in her life to work, to
Right.
make money, to better herself, to better her body too. I mean, I'm surprised she drinks so many Diet Cokes, but she drinks so many Diet Cokes as opposed to regular Coke. So I guess,
Right.
you know, and
Count it.
watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives made me realize, I think made us all realize why
Yeah.
they drink so many super big why Mormons drink so many super big gulps now. Like, now we understand.
Right.
So,
Right. The forbidden fruit.
right.
Well, so how does because I know Mars, or I know this is like an incredible generalization of Mars being like how you argue, right? But how
Mhm.
does that present in her arguments with the ladies? Because she does it, I see more like Cancer of like when she it feels like maybe the combination of like she's talking really fast, she can't get her words out, no one's really listening. She feels like she's not heard, even though that's all anyone's ever really hearing. And it's like
Mhm.
she can't get it out quickly enough. And then by the time she does, she just cries. Which resonates so much with me. I'm seeing so much now of like, man, I get Lisa on more of a level than I thought I did, to be honest.
I think you do. I think you
I really do. I'm like looking at her, I'm like, maybe this is why I like her. I thought it was just because she followed me on Instagram. And honestly, you can buy me. If they follow me, I'm like, well, now I'm loyal to you. So
we'll
it
we'll
is what
send
it
her the
is.
clip. We'll be like, hey Lisa, come on with us. Let's talk.
Come on,
Let's
girl.
make sure. Do we really have this right? Are you really a Cancer rising?
Yeah.
Let's hope
Give
so.
us your birth certificate.
Please just give us your birth time, please. Well, I would say I don't think you're wrong. I think that's a very good interpretation of it. I also
Yeah.
think it's kind of like her words. I mean, if you notice though, sometimes like her words can be like super cutting. Like if we just even just
Hmm.
look at like the fact of even though it's not a conjunction, it's just the whole house of like Mars and Mercury being together in
Yeah.
the same house with everything weighted. Like it's everything she does. I mean, I think it's it's just even more apparent, like looking at her home and like a lot of stuff. She doesn't like a lot of fluff. It's like, no, cut out the
Mhm.
fluff, cut out the stuff. Like, because Mars is also a cutting energy. So it's like, cut. Like, let's get down to brass tacks. Like, who cares? Like, let's not have a meeting about a meeting about a meeting. Let's just like, how much
Mhm.
do you want to pay for this? How much do you want to do this? Da, da, da. Get it done now. I don't want to, like, that's why a lot of times she's like, I'm over this. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Right.
And he's like, I want to keep talking about my feelings. She's like, no, you've already said your feelings. I've already said my feelings. We're not coming to a consensus. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Right. This is
I
wasting my
do
time.
exactly. She's like, it's wasting my, and I think sometimes though, like what you're talking about with the cancerness of it is like, I'm also like getting overwhelmed in my feelings, and
Mhm.
I'm afraid of what I might say because I've already said so much. And I
That's
know that
true.
my mouth gets me in trouble. So I should just leave now before I say anything else. So it's
Right.
just cut it down. Like Heather
Right.
Dubrow has kind of a similar thing, but but it comes from a different place, I would say. But
Right.
like, but I think she's just like that. It's almost like not exactly a poison arrow, but just
Right.
like it's more that bluntness of like, I almost see like a broadsword of like just like cutting through the shit and just like, oh shit, I'm mowing people down with what I'm saying.
Right. And I can't
I
stop.
can't stop because also like it's how I feel, it's how I see it.
Mhm.
And I get her in that fact of like me also being a Sagittarius too, of like sometimes like I just need to get this stuff out. And then once it's out, it's out. I'm done.
Right.
And then you can tell me how you feel. And then I'm going to take that in. But like just let me finish what I'm saying. And let me just say
Mm.
it. And also sometimes I know when I'm very opinionated or very passionate about something, it can't come off very forceful, but I'm also very much willing to listen to other people's opinions and our
Right.
ideas. Like I just let me say what I need to say. And then I can listen to you. And I think that's where the part where she doesn't listen is like when people are trying to talk over, she's like, just let me say it. It's just
Right.
that she sometimes can be long-winded, and I can
Right.
be too. So,
Right.
like,
Right.
because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which tends to like, which is the biggest planet, tends to take up. So no matter what, like she's also gonna have like a heavy Jupiter influence too. So,
Right.
which is interesting, which actually is something I want to talk about
Mhm.
because I think her ninth house is very interesting, knowing her background and like in Mormonism and having grown
Mhm.
up Jewish and then her family converting to Mormonism, which I think is interesting because the ninth house is the house of religion. It's the house of
Mhm.
law. It's the house of higher learning. It's the house of spirituality. It's the house of like traveling to foreign lands. Like we're supposed to like
Mhm.
the third house is traveling like domestically. This is like traveling at least at least for us Americans, like traveling overseas. It could even be like
Right.
traveling from like California to New York, to be honest with you. That's 3,000
Really,
miles.
yeah.
It's a long ways. But we have the main planet here is we have Jupiter. So you have Jupiter
Mhm.
here in Pisces. Pisces is also like a very kind of like spiritual sign.
Mhm.
And it's ruled by Pisces. I mean, sorry, it's ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter's very happy here. It's very it's happy being in Pisces and it's happy being in the ninth house because in just like a regular chart, uh, Sagittarius is just normally placed in the ninth house, just in an Aries based chart.
Right.
It's based in the ninth house, and so it knows its place there in the ninth house. So it's pretty happy there. But we have four asteroids that we've talked about before. This guy's
Uh-huh.
Pholus. It's like a domino effect. Something happens and they all fall down. Um,
Mm.
like things start. Ceres, um, aka Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, but the goddess of like who gives and also takes away. So
Mhm.
you've got springtime with her. She's giving like, bountiful, spring, everything new, and then autumn and winter comes and she takes away like the scythe. Like she's shaped like a scythe. And then we've got Juno, which is about like contracts, marriage, things like that. So I find it interesting that all of these are right here within 9 degrees of each other, all of them. So within this
Mhm.
whole like 10-degree orb period. And this is a place where this is a woman who was born into a Jewish family, into the Jewish faith. I don't know how practicing that they were, but culturally Jewish in New York. And then as a youth, the entire family converted to Mormonism. So, and that's taking that's something happened where they cut out a religion and changed into a bigger religion, a different religion, a newer religion, and which has a very binding contract. And that's a contract. And Judaism has a very big contract that you go through, being like bar mitzvah and all their contracts. I mean, I'm not Jewish, but from what I do know. And then Mormonism, that's another very binding contract that you make. And those contracts that you from what I know too, like
literally, because you remember Whitney had to get a sign off saying I'm leaving the church. That's
exactly
crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And these their wedding commitments, what we hear about the vows, even what Heather says, you can get into the kingdom of heaven without children, but you can't get in there without a husband.
That blew my mind. And let me tell you something, as much as I give Heather shit, she is kind of the translator of Mormonism. And I'm not on here to talk shit about people's religions, but that's crazy. And the more she explains things like that, the more it gives you insight onto religion, whether you like it or not, shapes your personality because you're, especially strict religions, I was indoctrinated in a lot of these beliefs because it's just put onto you. So it's this is not just something that you can unlearn, as fun as it is to beat up on Heather a little bit for her thoughts. It's it's not just something cutesy that we're letting go of. And it's okay, I'm going to release that belief. No, you're having to untangle years and years of indoctrination of these people think that they can't get into heaven if they don't have a man. Their eternal life depends on a man. That's patriarchy to the highest, So it explains the girl, I can't remember the new girl, but
Brittany,
with the one that's dating Offman, Brittany. Yeah, that explains a lot to her. And it's also sad, and you can see it from the kids' perspective of how that affects, you're talking about dominoes, how it affects the kids who are being raised by a mother who is always being put behind the needs of a man. I mean, that place.
I found it very enlightening because already, just a couple of episodes in, I'm enjoying Mary much more than I have in any previous season.
Yeah.
Period. But when and already she's fighting with Brittany, but the fact that she just called it out. She was you don't know anything about my life. She automatically thought I was poor, but she basically called it out that I had a mother who always put men ahead of her children. And she's reading Brittany's energy and knowing that is the energy. And that's what Brittany is giving. And she's I don't have time for women who have children and parents who don't have time for their children
but what I also thought was really interesting is that all she did was swing in the other direction. So as much as Mary may not want to admit it, they are two sides of the same coin, my friend, because remember Seriously. Her son, who she 10 minutes before that scene had been he's not paying any bills. He does still live in my house. Mother too hard, it's, and that's, I can see that too. It's completely natural that you swing. Overcorrection is natural.
Overcorrection. Right? 100. We all do it. It's
100%, which is what I was thinking with Whitney too, is kind of the same thing of so she's hurt and she repressed her feelings for a lot of years. So now she's overcorrecting and everything's about feelings. You got to find a middle. And I think that's where it starts to get annoying with Whitney is this is what your third season now. It's you should have kind of settled in the middle at this point,
Exactly. I would agree. Yeah. Cause I think we always want to see growth and change in our housewives, no matter which way it is, whether it's for the better or for the good.
Don't care. Just don't be stagnant.
Exactly. And I feel Whitney feels stagnant. I feel Lisa, is kind of sometimes I'm just oh, shut up. But I love Lisa, but that's what sometimes I go, Stacy, is that how people feel about you?
No, don't attach yourself to this. Look, I get that. When I looked at Lala's chart and realized we had the same one, I was God, that's a mirror I am not ready to look at.
And we're not going to look into that anytime soon.
I can't.
Well, and the fact that you two both have the same birthday as Tamara Judge. So Not the
Listen.
same year, thank God.
Thank God. But me and Lala the same year. Okay, so looking at Lisa's chart, because I know you talked
Mhm,
about growing through her chart, and we're talking about evolving as a housewife. But in
mhm.
general, what can you look at her chart as a whole and see what direction she needs to be going on? Is that
I
North Node that you would look at, or
I would say like North Node and like hold on, let's see. Well, no matter what, in a lot of ways, like the path of your life is going to go
Mhm.
towards your son, though, too. So,
Okay.
like, always like bettering, like, through her work, she's always going to
Mhm.
identify through work. And part of like, part of her, what's interesting though, is she has Chiron, this asteroid up here in her 10th house of career. That's
Mhm.
the wounded healer. This is usually a childhood wound, not a karmic wound from like a past life or anything. It's usually a
Right.
wound that we receive this time in our lifetime that we are working on. And so it's interesting because uh, I'm afraid that she has to work through feelings of never feeling good enough in her career.
Mm.
And
Which
that's
is
something that
interesting because she has so much in the career. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
but she has so much in the work. And work is different than career. Our
Mhm.
day-to-day, like sometimes we all know people, maybe we're even that person who we keep busy all the time and all we do is work, 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 work. And why are we working all the time? Because we don't feel good enough. We're never going to make enough money, or we're never going to be seen well enough for our business. We never think we're always trying to like reach something else. And as we were just talking, like we want to see our housewives evolve. And as human
Mhm.
beings, we need to evolve. But sometimes you need to be able to go, I've done enough here, or like, can we just slow down? We don't need to like be working constantly. And I think that's one of
Mhm.
the things with Lisa is that she's just always going, 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 going. That's what like kind of
Right.
this Mercury and Mars, both here in the second house, is just like going, 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 going. And it's just like nonstop. And actually, Mars, the sixth house is kind of the temple of Mars. It does well in the sixth house, so it's kind of it's easy for her to like get on that train. But she also can wear her
Mhm.
body out, so she has to be careful about like wearing her body out and wearing her psyche out. Like this, I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about the physical body in the sixth house, but like everything is, as I've said before, everything's connected, like our mind, our
Mhm.
body, our spirit, like these things all work together. So if she's never feeling good enough, then she can like in her mind and in her mind, if she's never feeling good enough, it's going to have an effect on her body. It's going to have an effect on her spirit. So
Mm.
like in this, she needs to work on this wound of how can she find ways in her career, whether through Vita Tequila, through Fresh Wolf, through the Housewives, that she can start to find some bits of contentment of like,
Mhm.
you know what? Even if it's just like Housewives of like, when she's like, I love myself, does she really? I mean, I think that she does, but I think there are
Yeah.
times where she's like, well, maybe I do, maybe like,
That's true because it's almost like thou doth protest too much, because now that I'm thinking about it, I said earlier, it's like she does love herself, but like maybe she is trying to really like, I love myself. The scene, was it Sydney Sweeney's like crying in the mirror? She's like, I'm so happy. It's like, I love myself. Like
mhm,
maybe she is trying to convince other people or herself that she feels that
mhm.
way.
Yeah. And there's times that we do like really love
Right.
us, like we're really feeling ourselves. And then we read the comments or something, and even though
Mm,
it's like, well, I do love myself, but why are these people hating on me? And we start to like question ourselves, like when we're reading the
yeah.
haters and the trolls and stuff like that. And like, and look, anything that we're saying here for any of these housewives is for entertainment purposes only. It is just my
Hmm.
speculation as an astrologer. These are just our opinions. We're not here to hurt anybody, not here to give medical, financial, spiritual, religious advice, like no advice here whatsoever. So please
Right.
don't, nobody take it
Don't
that way.
listen to us. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't take anything that we say as an invitation to try to harm any of these housewives or say anything
Right.
mean to them at all. Like this
Right.
this
Yeah.
is
Don't
for
even say a
fun.
mean comment.
Yeah, like this is also for hopefully for better understanding of how somebody, because that's my feeling, and actually your let me speak for you. Your feeling too is that we can better understand ourselves through astrology because it shows us
100%.
where we've been and where we're going,
Mhm.
and how these things influence us. So, I wouldn't be surprised. There's going to be, we just had a lunar eclipse in Pisces, and it's the beginning of these new eclipses in the Pisces Virgo axis that are really going to start up next year. So there could be
Mhm.
new, spiritual revelations for her.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not saying that she would just change her Mormonism or anything like that, but
Right.
there could be some changes, or there could be some big like travel stuff, or there could be some legal events, which I feel like there's already been hints of like her being sued about some work stuff and everything.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't she have, like, an obscene amount of lawyers? Doesn't she
she
have, like,
does.
6 lawyers or something?
But if you run a liquor company, you kind of have to.
Literally.
So, what else? Oh, this was something though. Um, this is real quick. So from Juno, the pom pom,
Mhm.
to Mercury here. So there's a red line. There's a square. So
Mhm.
this is something. This means that it's a hard aspect to square, but it's also a growing aspect. So this is
Mhm.
where like sometimes she can like when she speaks to people, it can come out like kind of what we were talking about earlier. It can alienate people because she can speak
Mhm.
harshly. It can come out harshly and it can alienate people. But when she's speaking lovingly and maybe even spiritually, it can draw people in. So
Mhm.
I think it's like her finding that timber of like, how can she speak, spiritually and, with love and still be herself and still get everything like across. And I think this,
Right.
like we are talking about balance. Like, I think that's what we're all trying to find. So
Right.
I think that's a big thing
So
for
are there
her.
any, like, major, conflicts or, like, conflicting energy in her chart? Because I feel like especially the Cancer Capricorn we had kinda talked about earlier, is there anything that she could try to integrate to find that balance that you're talking about?
If like, well, to be honest with you, there's a little bit of this like, well, first of all, I think one thing she has Pluto down here in her fourth house. Um,
Mhm.
and it's that's the house of home, family. It's very, it can be the feeling that I get is that her childhood home in her childhood might have felt unstable. That she might have moved
Mhm.
around a lot. But at the same time, being with family makes her feel powerful, like, and close. Like, it's in a lot of ways, though, like, she does have strong relationships with family members
Mhm.
and with family. It's like, well, like, I need to keep my nuclear family close. That's why she gets, like, so, like, emotional about her sons, and
Mhm.
I think there's one sister that she's super close with. I don't know about the others, but there's something about that, and because we have the south node, so we have this whole like Neptune, north node, south node here. I think a lot of
Mhm.
it is like let go of the fantasy of your childhood. Like because also Pluto sextiles these and trines this. Like this, it's what we call like a wedge here. You can kind of see it's like
Mhm.
here, there, it's a wedge. Letting go of the fantasy of her childhood or what the past was like, what home was like, will actually free her up to go to embrace what it really is. And
Interesting.
I think that would change her relationships with both her nuclear family and her larger family, and probably even like her work family, stuff like that. Like, stop trying to make it this idea, because Neptune is a lot of times like an idealized version of what you
Yeah,
think
like
things should be.
romanticizing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they're like that's like the shadow side of Neptune, is
Mm.
like trying to make things out to be something that they're not, or like trying to like, yeah, it's like, well, I thought my life should be this way. I need to make it this way. Or if it's not, it's shit, like being disappointed when it's not. Look, we all have disappointments, but like some people take it. We all know those people who are like, they're living in the past or living in the shoulda, woulda, couldas. Like
Yeah.
I should have been a star. I should have been rich. I should have been that, and let everything fall to the side. And I think
Mhm.
there's a bit of that in her when it comes to something, whether it's work, but I feel like it's more like family or the past. And she needs to
Mhm.
like work through that in order to like get what I think she'll go to like another, like,
Level.
yeah.
I totally get that. And there was the app, the pattern, which goes through,
Mhm.
cycles and stuff. I just came off of, I want to say it was like a year and a half stint, and it was called Reality Check, the cycle. And it was
Mm.
just that. It was Neptune and my little Pisces placement kicking me in the dick because I could romanticize anything, and it really came when not to get too heavy, but like when my dad passed away, that was like a jarring thing for me is like, you can't romanticize this in any way. Like sometimes you really just have to look like the facts are facts. And it was so deeply unpleasant, but you do come out the other side. Like, I mean, it's sad. You kind of have to mourn the like overly saturated, beautiful colors of everything, that didn't really exist. But then when you
Mhm.
can actually look at it, like you said, like that's when you get these nuggets of like, there was all this information in there that I found that I couldn't see because I was too busy like, no, it was fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Like there's
Yeah.
a weird romance and a weird beauty in looking at things the way they actually exist. And I never thought I would ever say that. Literally ever. But it is. So I can completely see what you're saying with that. I wish
It's
I'd had
kind
background information about it specifically.
I know. Well, it's kind of those, um it's like leaving your house and going and standing on the ground barefoot. Like, oh,
Mm,
like your house is real, but it's also a place where you can make it whatever you want it to be. Like you can order all this stuff from Amazon, you can put on whatever you want on television, you can buy whatever colored lights and whatever. And like it's kind of real. Like it's there. But if you go outside and you take off your shoes and you stand on the ground or you hug a tree, like
mhm.
that's real. It has dirt on it. It's got bugs. The bark is kind of like, scratchy, but it's also beautiful.
Right.
So like just what you're saying, like it's a little harsh, but it's like, but at the same time, you see the beauty in these things. You're like, wait a
Right.
minute. This perfection that I'm working towards inside of my house, actually, while it's gorgeous and I like it, what is it doing for me? It's serving some
Right.
purpose, but it's not
Right.
everything. So, yeah. I would also she's turning 50 this year, um,
Wow.
which is a milestone. I know. I was like, "Wait a minute, she's turning 50?" I was like, "Wait a
That's
minute." I
crazy.
had to double check. So that is
Right.
it's a in the annual perfections, that would be it would be a third house year for her. So everything would be kind of weighted towards her third house, which is interesting because then like she has her this is the axis where in
Mhm.
2025 where all the eclipses are going to be. Well, there'll be one
Right.
last Aries eclipse. But like she's like stuff having to do, she might, granted, I don't know. I don't, does she own a house? She seems to have a different home every year. So
I
she
don't
might
know.
rent too. No,
She might
she
be
might,
right.
she might move. Um, she might like other things are like going to change. Like I would say in her like neighborhood, stuff like that. Like this is like
Mm.
a year of like change and how she communicates with people. Like social media kind of lives here too. Like she might get like a new social media person, stuff like that.
Start a
Things,
podcast?
start a podcast.
I would love that.
Better than
I
two
love
teeth.
that.
I love that.
Say it. I
I
love
love
that. Also, can I just say, because when I was looking, I was trying to look her up to see if I could find any like recent things that had happened to think about her chart. And the only thing I was stopped in my tracks because I couldn't find anything else beyond this. When I looked up, it says quick facts and it said how old she was. And under it, it says professions. The first one listed, musician.
No.
I laughed so loud. Musician and then business person behind it.
No.
I was like, well,
Oh,
that's all I need to know. I don't know who is running her social media or her wiki page. But yeah,
you
she's
know
listed
what?
as a musician first.
I know somebody who does social media for housewives and other people. And so maybe Lisa
They're killing
Barlow,
it.
if you need
Tired of
a
them.
contact, there's somebody here at PCP who could help you out. So.
Oh no, she's probably really happy. They probably did that on purpose. She's like, I am a musician. Didn't you hear me singing her Christmas carol?
I can't throw stones.
Maybe she'll be a singer. Maybe that's the communication. She's gonna be a singer.
Maybe. Oh my gosh. Oh, the
Her
voice
music
of an
career is
angel.
launching. You heard it here first.
I mean, everything's fixable with autotune, right?
Literally.
I mean, with the 6th house there, she literally can make everything work. Make everything
Right.
work.
Right. She's delusional enough to make it happen. You know what I mean? She's got the confidence, or she's good enough at faking it to convince me that she knows what she's doing.
She just makes everything pretty, so it'll always work out. It'll always work out. I mean, look, she doesn't have anything. She doesn't have a lot of like harsh stuff. She doesn't have a ton of easy stuff, but she doesn't have a ton of like harsh stuff in her chart necessarily. I just like she's very weighted. Yeah. Like
work.
Yeah. Like the only real thing like to detriment is like she doesn't have like a lot of signs in their detriment or fall, just her moon in Capricorn, which I mean can be a big one, but like there's sometimes people where it's like, oh my gosh, like every planet is in the wrong sign.
Right.
I'm using the term wrong very
Right.
loosely. It's like you're just like, oh gosh, this person comes up against a lot of hardships and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, I think she's kind of a person where she can get in her own way, and she can let. I think probably the issues with Whitney is because she's like, I've let my past go. And maybe that's something too. Maybe she's let a lot of her past go. Maybe that's something that she has worked on. And she just is like, that's for me to not talk about because I dealt with that and I don't want to talk about it on camera. And
that's true.
And this is fine. Like, that's another thing I would say a lot of time with Sagittarius is that they can tell you a lot and but the stuff that they're not willing to tell you, they're not going to tell you it.
Right.
Like, so it's like, she can tell you a lot about a lot of things, but you can kind of see her at times clam up about stuff like, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that because it's like, well, I'm willing to talk about X, Y, and Z. And you may think those things are inappropriate, but I think it's inappropriate for me to talk about A, B, and C. So I'm not going to talk about A, B, and C. You can talk about A, B, and C. Fine. That's fine. But I'm not going to talk about it in regards to me.
Right. No, I could definitely see that being annoying for her with Whitney specifically. Of like, yeah, get over it. We all had, childhoods.
Yeah.
Like, so why are you still going on about it?
Yeah. It's like, okay, you've been through childhood trauma. All right. Awesome. And I've been there for you with it. And I might have even talked to you about my own childhood trauma off camera. And now I'm afraid that you're going to bring it up because you're just spewing stuff out. And that's not something that I want brought up on camera. And so I'm afraid as you are going on your rampage that you're going to bring up my dirty laundry that is not welcome to be on camera. And that is not a storyline. This is your storyline, but please don't make your storyline everybody else's storyline if they don't want it that way.
That's a whole word.
It is, I mean, it's a fine line. And I think, and that's the thing with Whitney. Like, I think Whitney is irresponsible with her mouth while Lisa is very targeted with hers.
So I'd be interested to see Whitney's chart in general, but up against Lisa's specifically. They may have a lot of like opposite, like opposing energies.
Yeah. What was it? I think Whitney Rose is a Libra. We'll do that. We'll put that on the.
We'll have to put her on the list, yeah, because now I'm curious.
So, she is a Libra
more than usual.
She is a Libra. Her birthday's coming up in a couple of days. So yeah,
good for her.
Well, a couple of days from now.
I don't know what I'm thinking with Whitney now.
Well, and that's the thing. If she's a Libra sun, then she would just like trigger feelings maybe of that home life.
That's true. Yeah.
that Lisa has. So, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's so interesting to see people. I think the dynamic between people is so interesting in the same way that I was talking about Brittany, you said, and Mary. Like, I think it's so interesting to watch them, what they pull out of each other, because how someone else makes you feel will tell you a lot about yourself. Or like watching Mary react to Brittany tells me a lot more about Mary than it does about Brittany specifically. You know what I mean? So it is sometimes fun to watch them to see who triggers them.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you hit the nail on the head. That's why, ladies, come to Stacy and Dahlia, and
yes,
we will help you. We
we'll
can
get you
be,
through this.
yes, we'll be your astrotherapists, and we will get
Yes,
you through with these other trifling housewives. Like, we will get you through it.
literally, literally.
All right. Well, anything else about Lisa before we end this session?
I don't think so. I definitely, the Cancer rising made me feel better about why I like her so much. And it makes sense, you know. And I think that's the thing too, like we were talking about, like exploring them. This is what I want to say. When the guy that I was talking about earlier, when he was like, your feelings, like no one knows. Everyone is going to look through their own filter, right? So for people to think that you need to change, I think of astrology as like programming, right? I've told you before, I think it's kind of like coding for a computer. This doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means, like you said, you're supposed to grow through your chart. There are things in your life that you're going to work on specifically. So don't think that because you have this placement or this lesson in life that there's anything wrong with it, or that if it triggers you, that says something negative about you. Like, it's just this incarnation. This is what you wanted to focus on. And it makes sense that like all of these things are going to happen, you know, the domino falls, and it's like, we just accept them and don't let other people being triggered make you feel any kind of way about yourself, because that's on them. That's my mama speech.
Preach, mama, preach. Yes. Oh my gosh. Amen. Okay. Well, look, if any of your can you talk, Stacey?
We're on the end.
So, if anybody wants their own personal reading with me, Dahlia's had one. So,
I 10 out of 10 recommend. I was going to say I loved it, and you've given me insight. And this is something I've said on here before. I don't know. There's so much depth to astrology, and I know the basics. So I have hyper fixated on my chart, and there were still things that I needed to know about, like how things work together, that you were able to give me perspective on. So even if you have looked into your own astrology, I think it's still insightful to be able to look at how everything kind of works together and see the big picture of things. So I cannot recommend it enough.
Thank you so much. And also, like, there's also times like I usually recommend like a natal chart reading, and then solar return readings, like usually around your birthday. Like, people can ask for like more often readings that they want them, like some people like to do them like once a month, but I'm while I will gladly take your money, I think more like quarterly, or if there's like a big event coming up, like something like that. And there's pricing for different stuff. So, but if you would like a reading with me, reach out to me. My email address is in the description below on YouTube, but also you can reach me via my socials. So they're all there. The real Stacy Connor on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And then of course follow PCP, follow me, but definitely follow Dahlia. You guys know her. I mean, bravo bitch fest, please.
Bravo bitch fest. I've got people that are yelling at me for the Bethany in Paris video. So when I'm finished with that, I'm gonna go channel my inner neuroses and make a Paris Fashion Week video.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Well, I mean, after our last recording, you did the Bethany boobs one, and that was
I was feeling especially inspired after our Bethany reading. I was in her head. I need to listen to that interview that we did of Bethany about her chart before every video that I make.
Oh, that's right, you do. Well, yeah,
because it's like, it's like studying for my part.
It is. It is.
Oh, so Ocean
All right.
type.
All right, everybody. Well, definitely follow Bravo Bitch Fest and make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. We are trying to hit the 500 followers. And hopefully we've hit it by the time that this episode comes out. But if we have, then I want 1,000 by
Let's go.
by the new year. So let's
Next
do
week.
this. All right. All right, baby gorgeouses. We love you.
Yes. Bye.